Isn't it possible that God has another way of salvation for the Jewish people?
No. Let me tell you another story. Ruth and I moved to the Soviet Union in 91. It was in its death throes. And we'd only been there a couple of months. We moved to the city of Odessa. Why? Well, because that's where my family came from. Anyway, so we're in Odessa, and by God's grace, we're building a thriving work. Jewish people are getting saved. They're joining us in the ministry. And I get this message from this Swedish businessman who's visiting Odessa. And he wants me to come and visit him in his hotel room, the London Skya Hotel. I remember it clearly. A Christian. And he invites me to come to his hotel room to talk with him. So, okay. So I show up. And we quickly discovered that there was a misunderstanding. He thought that I was a local messianic leader. And he believed that God had said to him, he had a deep love for our people. And he believed that God had directed him to buy and equip 3 ships, 3 ocean voyagers, to transport Jewish people from the Soviet Union to Israel, to Haifa. And he wanted to meet with me to urge me to gather up my people and to get on one of these ships. So I explained to him that I was grateful for his love for my people, but there was a little misunderstanding. I wasn't a local messianic leader. I was a missionary, a Jewish missionary who'd come over to bring the gospel to our people. And then I said, but you know, there's a way that we can work together. If you're going to gather even more Jewish people to the port city of Odessa so they can leave on your ships to go to Haifa, let's work together. You bring them to Odessa. I've got a great team that's growing. We'll get the gospel to them. Whether they believe, whether they don't believe, they'll get on your ships having heard the gospel. Who knows what God will do with them once they get to Israel? I thought it was a great idea. He didn't. He stands up. He was tall. He stands up and he says in a very stern voice, he says, I have given my word that I will have nothing to do with Jewish evangelism before, during, or after any of my ships sail. So I thought for a second, and then I said, you know, Jewish person who dies in Odessa without the Lord goes to hell. You put him on a ship in Odessa and transport him to Haifa, and he dies in Haifa without the Lord, he still goes to hell. And this gentleman said, well, no, we really don't know what happens to a Jewish person who dies without the Lord. I said, yes, we do. He goes to hell. And I showed him scriptures. I took him to Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, written to us. The book of Hebrews was not written to Norwegians. That's why it's called the book of Norwegians. No, it's called the book of Hebrews. Right? And the writer of the book of Hebrews says in 9:27, it's appointed unto man, to us, it's appointed unto man once to die, then the judgment. No second chance, no alternative way. So this gentleman looks at me and he says, well, theologically you might be correct, but I feel a check in my spirit. Do we still say that? That was a popular charismatic phrase when I was a younger man.
Still happens.
Still happens? Okay. You may be theologically correct, but I feel a check in my spirit. I said, well, that check's not coming from the Lord. There was really no place for the conversation to go. We shook hands. We wished each other well. I don't think we ended the meeting with a prayer. Did we? You were there. I don't think we prayed. And we left. Listen to me very carefully. If we Jews don't need Jesus to be saved, if there's a different way of salvation for us Jews, then it's only because Jesus is not who he claimed to be. Because he claimed to be the only way to the Father. He said, I'm the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. That's what he claimed about himself. So if there's another way of salvation for us Jews, it's only because he's not who he claimed to be. What does that mean? That means that he's a liar, he's a deceiver, and he's a blasphemer. If he's not who he claimed to be, then everything he said and taught about himself was blasphemy. To say that he and the Father are one. That's blasphemy if it's false. Now, if he's a blasphemer, what does that mean? That means that we Jews who believe in him will be condemned by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for apostasy. And it means you Gentiles who believe in him will be condemned by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for idolatry. So you see, if you allow for the fact that God has a separate way of salvation, you are saying that you're going to be condemned. Do you follow that logic? There's no middle ground. Jesus is either Lord of all, or Jesus is not Lord at all. You can't have it both ways, and you need to decide. If you're not decided, you need to decide where you stand on that issue. This is black and white. This is cut and dried. There's no middle ground. Either he's your Savior and my Savior, or he is a blasphemer, and we should shun him with every fiber of our being. You can't entertain that notion.